Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Flashtalk. My colleague Jeamme Chia and I are going to introduce you to our review of assisted natural regeneration in tropical forests. My name is Viola Taubmann, and I'm a candidate for the Master of Environmental Management at the Yale School of the Environment. My focus is on our global food system and specifically on sustainable farming. I have a background in international development and some practical experience in agroforestry.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeamme Chia and I'm also a Master of Environmental Management candidate at the Yale School of the Environment, where I focus on ecosystem management and environmental policy, with a special focus on the intersection of sustainable land use, ecosystem restoration, and economic development in the tropics. Today, we are here to talk to you about our research where we are reviewing assisted natural regeneration in tropical forests. Before we dive into talking about assisted natural regeneration or ANR, I want to set the scene for why we believe this is important. As we know, tropical forests hold critical stores of the global carbon stock and are able to sequester almost 15% of anthropogenic carbon emissions. However, more than 50% of tropical forest extent has been lost since the 1960s, and an estimated 500 million hectares of land have been degraded. Studies estimate that tropical deforestation and forest degradation emit almost 6 gigatons of carbon equivalent a year, more than the emissions of the European Union, India, and Russia combined. To mitigate the impacts of climate change, scientists and foresters are turning to different approaches to regenerate tropical forests. The selection of an appropriate restoration approach depends on the degree of degradation, availability of seed sources, cost, and management objectives. One such example is assisted natural regeneration. Assisted natural regeneration is an approach to restoring degraded forest landscapes that depend on the presence of different forms and conditions of naturally established tree regeneration on site. The growth of spontaneously established seedlings and sprouts is facilitated and accelerated by removing competition and tending to seedlings through methods such as weeding, burning, fertilization, and pressing, which you can see in the image on the left. ANR as a technique has likely been used by indigenous forest peoples for over thousands of years and on an informal basis, and at least for several centuries under formal documented use as part of Western conventional silvicultural practices. The specific phrase, assisted natural regeneration, is a relatively recent term that is now widely used in ecological literature, but in practice, ENR is often conducted in parallel with natural regeneration practices and planting interventions such as enrichment planting. There have been previous reviews of ANR, which can be broadly categorized into three groups. The first, reviews that have focused on the application of ANR in one region. The second, some reviews have assessed ANR as part of a global suite of active regeneration techniques that include planting practices. And finally, are the other reviews focused specifically on the stimulation of natural regeneration, of which ANR is included on degraded lands. But despite this range of reviews, there is no clear definition of ANR. Reviews have included ANR as both active and passive restoration approaches, and despite the known ecological and economic benefits of ANR as an approach, no clear review assessing the current state of ANR in tropical systems exists. Neither has there been a review of when, where, and how ANR has been used and treated and tested, and the factors that drive ANR success. To fill these knowledge gaps, we conducted a review of ANR studies in the tropics with three objectives in mind. First, to organize the studies, we will be characterizing the literature in terms of regional distribution of studies, species patterns, previous land use, the type of treatments used, and measures of success, such as growth and survival. Secondly, based on the literature, we intend to propose a coherent working definition of ANR that can provide some clarity and specificity that may be useful to scientists and practitioners. And finally, we will be identifying factors of success across different geographies, species, and treatments, with the idea that understanding these success factors under specific local conditions can benefit the work of practitioners looking to restore tropical forests.
So in order to achieve those research objectives, we first undertook a literature search using Web of Knowledge as well as Google Scholar, and searched for terms such as regeneration, release, cleaning, liberation, and guided succession, and combinations thereof. We then, first of all, we found a total of 118 papers, 91 of which we included in our database, and then extracted data such as location, treatment type, and species data from the papers, and cleaned the data, for example, by combining a variety of terms that were used in the studies under common categories. And we then analyzed the data by conducting basic summary statistics and rank abundance calculations to determine trends in publications over time, as well as in study duration. We also analyzed which treatments were most commonly used depending on the ecosystem type, what the land use before the restoration was, and which species were targeted most commonly in INR treatments. So in the following slides, we're going to present a selection of some of our preliminary findings. As you can see here in these numbers, the studies included in our review were done in 30 different countries, the majority of which were in Latin America, in the neotropics, some in Asia, and a small amount on the African continent. The average duration of the studies was 5 years, with the longest one being an impressive 30 years. This very long study was located in a tropical wet forest site. Overall, studies in tropical wet forests made up 46%, while 22% were conducted in tropical dry forests. And you can see the exact distribution of studies by forest types in this graph on the right. It shows the date of the paper publication. And as you can see, most papers were published since 1995, with the earliest one being from 1955. In this figure, you can see how often treatments were used in each ecosystem type. And the treatment that was used most commonly in most studies was plant removal, for example, through weeding. And it was most often used in tropical wet forests. Other treatments included burning, animal exclosures, herbicide application, and liana removal. We also assessed the most commonly used species and found Cordia aleodora to be the top species. And detailed results like these allow practitioners to use our findings to evaluate which species and treatments will be most successful for their individual restoration efforts. We are going to continue analyzing the data, and we hope to develop more qualitative analysis as well. We're hoping to publish this in the coming month. So thank you for listening.